Welcome back to Badass One-on-One Offers. We are in Module 3 talking all about discovery calls. And in this lesson, we are going to lay out a discovery call roadmap. And the idea here is that you can take this roadmap and develop a tailored, customized script that you can use to lead your discovery calls confidently. And the basic roadmap that you can use to put together a script for yourself is to build rapport, understand the problem, share the solution, and determine next steps. So these four items on the roadmap are really going to be like sections of the discovery call, and we'll make sure that the conversation flows really organically and naturally, but also leads to conversions. So the first section of the discovery call is simply to build rapport. This is when you first get on the call, you're introducing yourselves to each other, you're connecting. And in this section of the discovery call, which is really, really short, you want to look for common ground, for shared interests, for shared values, for connections that you have in common. This is why I really like to ask people before they get on the phone with me how they heard about me, because maybe we have a mutual friend or a shared contact. Maybe they know one of my former clients and we can connect over that. This is really about connecting on a human level before you get into business talk. And after you've had a chance to connect, it's important to give a roadmap for the conversation. So this is where you want to take control of the conversation and say, this is why we're meeting today, and this is what we're going to talk about. So this is just an example of something you might say after you just have a chance to introduce one another, get to know one another for a few minutes. You might say something like, I'm going to ask you some questions to better understand what you need. Then I'll recommend how we might work together and answer any questions that you might have. You basically just want to say, this is why we're talking today, and this is what we're going to do. Very, very simple, but a very powerful way to put you in the driver's seat of the conversation. So once you've built rapport, then you move into a section of the call where you are deep diving into the prospective client's problem. This is where you want to take the initial information that they gave you and go deeper and really understand what they need on a deep level. So this is going to involve asking a ton of questions to the prospective client. And this is also going to be where you listen much, much more than you talk. So I would expect to dedicate about half of your time, no matter how long your discovery calls are, dedicate at least half of the call to probing and understanding the client better. And when you're putting together the questions that you want to ask, these are the categories of questions that you need to be thinking about. The first is the context. So you want to understand, who are they and why are they reaching out to you? What is the background information that led them to a place where they are on the phone with you inquiring about your services? You want to understand that. You also want to understand their goals. So what is it? What outcome are they looking for? What do they want to get out of the process? I will often ask my prospective clients, what do you want to accomplish working with a coach? Why do you want to work with a coach? And it can be that simple. The next, you can address the challenges. So what are some things that are coming up for them that are preventing them from getting what they want? So if you are a Facebook ads manager, you might ask them, what are some of the challenges that you've had with Facebook ads in the past? And they can tell you, I don't have the technical expertise, or I don't have the time, or I don't really have a big audience, or whatever their challenges are. You then want to understand the value. So the value-based questions are really about understanding what positive impact is the work going to have on that person, on their life or on their business. You can ask them, like, how is your life or your business going to be better when these challenges are resolved? And then lastly, and most importantly, and this is the category of questions that most people skip or forget about, is urgency. What you really want to understand is why are they reaching out now? Is there anything going on in their life that is causing this problem to need to be addressed urgently? So you want to understand, is there something happening that you need to be aware of, that you need to account for as you're going through the sales process? So these are the questions that you need to ask. I would suggest when you're putting together your script, making sure that you have at least one or two questions in each of these categories. And you don't have to ask every single question, every single time you get on the phone with somebody, but it's important to have some of these questions in your tool belt so that you can make sure you're getting the information that you need. Once you get a really deep understanding of the client and where they are and the background and where they want to be and all of those things, then you can pivot to talking about yourself, to talking about your solution. And I like to use a very specific 3-step framework when I'm pivoting away from talking to the client about them and I'm starting to talk about what I do. The first thing I like to do is parrot the problem. So that basically means repeat back to that prospective client what I heard them say their problem is. So I might say something like, I understand a lot of people struggle with XYZ thing. And that's why I work with clients on these issues day in and day out. Or I might say something like, what I'm hearing you say is that you really want to work on this thing and this thing and this thing, and you need a coach to help you. So whatever they said, you want to parrot it back to them so that they know that you heard them and that you get why you get them on a deep level. That's a really powerful thing. Once you parrot the problem, then you get their permission to share the solution. So you don't just launch into talking about your services, but you ask them if they would like to hear about it. Again, this is a very simple and subtle thing, but it is very powerful to get somebody's permission. So you might say, based on what you have shared so far, I think you would be a really good fit for my XYZ program. Can I talk to you a little bit about how that works? So you're basically saying, I think that I can help you. Can I talk to you a little bit about what that would look like? And then they'll probably say yes. And that's when you can start to review the process. So you want to give a high level overview of what the process looks like of working with you. So parrot the problem, permission to share the solution, and then review the process. And when you get into the process, I want you to avoid the temptation to go into tons and tons of detail about your service. Because if you share too much detail or if you talk too long, people's eyes are going to glaze over and they're not really going to be able to follow. So what you want to do is just provide a very brief, high-level overview of what your process is and then ask them for questions. So you might say, in my coaching program, we do this and we do this and we do this. It's 5 weeks and we meet every week and we do all of these things. What specific questions do you have about how it works? Because what then you can do is you can hone in on the parts of your service that they're the most confused about, or they have the most questions about, or they have the most objections to, and you can really hone in on that instead of spending too much time reviewing every single aspect of the service. So avoid the temptation to talk too much. I would make it a point to get your spiel into 5 minutes or less. So after you give your spiel, you want to talk about next steps. So that's when you can share what the investment is, if you can, right? So you can share what the price is for your service if it's standardized. If you need to go back to the drawing board and come up with a tailored proposal and a tailored price, then obviously you can't share the price on the call. But if you can, share the investment. And this is where you want to ask where they stand. So it's totally okay to ask, where are you in your decision process? Do you think this is something that you want to move forward with? And you can just ask people directly, where are you? And they might tell you, I'm pretty sure we want to move forward and we're ready to see a proposal. Or they might say, you know what, we're pretty early on in our decision-making process and we're still talking to other people about different options. So we're not quite ready for a proposal yet. That's really important for you to know. So you need to ask where they stand. And then based on that, you share what the next steps are. So you tell them, I am going to send you a proposal today, or I am going to send you a proposal by the end of the week. And that proposal will include a contract and an invoice, and it will be there for you to review. Right? You tell them exactly what the next step is. Or if they're not ready for a proposal, that's when you can say, I understand. I'll touch base with you next week to see where you stand in your decision-making process. And then you make a plan for follow-up. And we're going to talk about follow-up in the next lesson. So that's it for the Discovery Call Roadmap. We're going to get into Discovery Call follow-up in the next lesson.